Zimbabwe's elections, well, Zimbabwe's ruling party ZANU-PF has claimed a sweeping victory in Monday's polls. To discuss with us more on the situation in Zimbabwe, we have in studio Mr. Nqabutho Mabena. Sir, thank you so very much for joining us here on Afro Breakfast.
Morning to you and morning to the viewers.
All right, well, it seems that you've got the ZANU-PF on one side, the MDC on one side claiming victory. Your party's reaction to everyone sort of going, we've won these elections?
Well, the MDC alliance argument that they've won is based on the fact that they did win elections or seats, quite a number of seats in urban centers. You will know that the first results that came away in urban centers, MDC historically, since its formation as a party or a movement formed by the working class, it enjoys huge support in urban centers, while the ZANU-PF, a party that introduced neoliberal reforms in 1991 by adopting economic structural adjustment program, pushed itself to the rural communities where it uses patronage and it understands how to mobilize the rural communities through traditional leaders and other structures in the rural communities. It has retained that support. The only time that ZANU-PF lost that support in rural communities was in 2008 in March, when in Zimbabwe you could not buy anything when the shops were empty. But after the inclusive government of 2009 to 2013, when we were able now to import goods from South Africa, Botswana and everywhere and pack in the shops, you will now have your fuel, which was now available in Zimbabwe. It went back to assert itself in rural communities.
Yeah.
It went again to continue with the patronage in the villages through providing your vehicles and other necessities to the traditional leadership. This is why it is maintaining its stronghold. So basically we have two organizations or two parties, one that is rurally based, and our constituencies, we have more constituencies in rural areas and less constituencies in urban areas. But what is significant is that the margin in the urban centers between the MDC alliance and the ZANU-PF is closing. So you are beginning to see a formal liberation movement that is beginning to make some inroads in urban centers. For instance, in Bulawayo, it won a seat. That is very significant.
Sorry, is the MDC also moving into, are we seeing a shift in terms of MDC support as well? Are they also going into the rural areas?
We are not seeing that because the gap in rural areas is huge.
Yeah.
If you look at the results at what we'll call ZANU-PF strongholds, you will see that MDC is far behind. Okay. So MDC as an urban party, if one were to define them or characterize them in that, has not been able to infiltrate or to understand what the needs of the rural communities. So this is why you have this huge gap. So that's what we are seeing. So for the MDC, yes, fair and fine, they won in urban areas. They will base their argument on that, but they are not there in rural communities.
Celebrating yesterday, we saw them celebrating in Harare, the MDC, claiming that it was done, that it won. What were they sort of imagining had happened? Because I have to say it's imaginations then at this point.
No, they were correct to celebrate in Harare because Harare is a province. They own Harare. They have a right to celebrate.
Yes.
But there's no linkage. That linkage between urban and rural. This is where they've missed it. Young people in Harare, in Bulawayo, elsewhere, in urban centers, they did mobilize themselves. They went to register, they went to vote. But they did not register to vote in their numbers. If you look into the people that are registered in urban centers, is less than 2 million. If you look at people that are registered in rural communities, it's over 3 million. So if in your stronghold, you have less than 1.5 million registered voters. For instance, in Bulawayo, you have about 245,000 registered voters. And we have a good turnout, 75%. But you should have pushed those numbers higher. And the reason is simple. When the mobile voter registration started, Chamisa, who has been drawing crowds, was not yet the leader of the MDC Alliance, because the registration started in September 2017, and none of us at the time knew that the late Tsvangirai and Robert Mugabe were not going to take part in the elections. So when Chamisa then comes in as the leader of the party, drawing crowds, speaking to the youth, the mobile registration was now over. You now needed to go to the district offices for you to register, and this is why young people then did not in rural communities register in their numbers.
It does seem that this has been a sort of two-horse race. It's the MDC Alliance and ZANU-PF. That's all we're hearing about. But, I'd really like to hear from you about the other political parties. Are there other political parties that are, sort of making some kind of an impression on the Zimbabwean electorate at all?
The majority of these parties, they were either members of ZANU-PF, the people were disgruntled in ZANU-PF, then they left to try and form up something, or disgruntled members of the MDC Alliance or MDC, United MDC as it were, who left to form something. They've not been able to go with the grassroots support. For instance, if you look at ZANU-PF, none of the ex-leaders of ZANU-PF has been able to move out with the grassroots support of ZANU-PF, including Robert Mugabe himself. They've never done that. So, but I think what is critical in this election for the region, you are beginning to see a formal liberation movement that is now asserting itself in society. What does it mean for the broader liberation movement in the SADC region, in Tanzania, in South Africa, here in Angola? You will also understand that, particularly here in South Africa, the liberation movement is always having challenges in urban centers. You saw the local government elections in 2016, where the liberation movement lost to the DA. So the question of corruption within the governance system under the liberation movement has driven the workers away in supporting the liberation movement. The neoliberal policies that liberation movements are embracing, what in South Africa they will call tenderpreneurs, are some of the reasons which drive the working class out of the liberation movement. You then remain with the base of the rural populace. So ZANU-PF has been able to ascertain itself and to maintain its stronghold. We are left to see how it is going to move forward. But again, the challenge that you have in Zimbabwe, with over 80% unemployment, the trade union movement, which has been the bedrock of the opposition, is very weak. You cannot rely, like you did in 2000, rely on the structures of the ZCP, of the trade union movement to make a connection between urban and the rural.
All right. Well, I think just as a closing question, I'm sure this is what our viewers are more interested in and getting an understanding of. I'm sure you can give us a more clearer picture, or real picture of what really to expect as we sort of get closer to getting those results coming out of Zimbabwe. What are your sort of, and I suppose at this point we don't have to say predictions. We are starting to get a little bit of an understanding of what the results have for us. But what do you have for us? What do you think would be the likely outcome out of these elections?
Well, it's given, because if ZANU-PF has already taken about 109 seats, I mean, I will not be surprised if they get a two-thirds majority in parliament and Mnangagwa an outright win. But what is key, what you are saying is the Zimbabwe Communist Party, because we said in 2017 November that the outcome of this election is going to be contested. And they were beginning to see that happening from the MDC Alliance. But what is critical in our view is that you begin to say, how do we address the economic fundamentals in our country? How do we rebuild the industries? Young people need jobs. So therefore, we have said, and we continue to make a call, that there is need for a national economic dialogue in Zimbabwe that is inclusive, that involves the opposition, the ruling party, civil society, and the rest of the world, so that we begin to say, our focus for the next 5 years is to rebuild the economy. It can't be correct to continuously have young people crossing the Limpopo River to South Africa and elsewhere when we have resources in Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF, they will try to rebuild the economy. They are now restoring their relationship with Britain. Britain has its challenges, Brexit and so forth. But our fear is that they are going to rebuild the economy through cheap labor. But there is need for us to have this dialogue so that we begin to address the economic fundamentals in our country.
All right, we appreciate your time, Mr. Nqabutho Mabena, General Secretary of Zimbabwe Communist Party, shedding us some light for us on the Zimbabwe elections and updates for us there. Thank you so very much for that, sir. We appreciate that.